Welcome back to the channel, USD Coins, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most fascinating and potentially valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint, the 1965 Liberty Quarter Dollar. Today, we're going on a detailed journey through the remarkable and sometimes mysterious world of coin errors and minting anomalies, focusing on how a simple 25-cent piece from 1965 could be worth as much as $7 million. That's right. A face value of just a $quarter, yet its story, its composition, and the incredible series of mistakes and missteps in its creation have made it the stuff of numismatic legend. So sit back, relax, and prepare to learn how a coin you might have once held in your pocket change could actually be a rare piece of American history with a value that rivals some of the world's most coveted artifacts. Let's begin by setting the stage. The year is 1965. A time of immense cultural and economic change in the United States. The country was deeply entrenched in the space race, the civil rights movement was in full swing, and inflation and rising silver prices were beginning to impact how the U.S. Mint made its coins. Up until that year, the standard Washington quarter had been struck in 90% silver and 10% copper. This composition had been in place since 1932, when the Washington quarter was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. But rising silver prices had caused the intrinsic value of these coins to rise dangerously close to, or even above, their face value. The U.S. Mint realized it had a problem. If people started hoarding silver coins because the metal was worth more than the denomination stamped on the coin, it would cause a serious shortage of circulating currency. So, in 1965, Congress authorized a change in composition. The quarter would no longer be struck in silver but rather in a clad composition, specifically, a copper core sandwiched between two layers of cupronickel. This transition was not just a footnote in minting history. It created the conditions for one of the most astounding and valuable mint errors ever discovered. Here's where things start to get interesting. During this transitional period, the Mint was converting its equipment and changing its processes to accommodate the new clad coinage. This wasn't an overnight change, and in the chaos of adapting minting facilities, some mistakes slipped through. Among these mistakes was the accidental minting of a few 1965 dated quarters on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. These silver planchets were supposed to have been completely phased out by the end of 1964, but somehow, a few got caught in the machinery and made their way into circulation in 1965 with the new date but the old composition. The presence of these silver 1965 quarters is what primarily fuels the jaw-dropping price tags. Most 1965 quarters are worth their face value or perhaps a small premium in high grades. But the few examples struck on silver planchets are among the rarest transitional errors in U.S. coin history. Experts believe that only a handful exist, and when they appear at auction, they generate intense bidding wars. One particularly well-preserved example sold for over $7,000 several years ago, and others in mint state have commanded prices in the tens of thousands. The rumors of one being sold privately for around $7 million remain part of the coin's mythos, but given the trajectory of numismatic prices and the fascination with transitional errors, it's not entirely implausible. Now, let's delve into the specifics of what makes these error coins so rare and how you can tell if you have one. First and foremost is the weight. The standard 1965 clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, whereas the silver quarters from 1964 weigh approximately 6.25 grams. That difference of less than a gram might not seem like much, but for collectors and dealers, it's a vital clue. A 1965 quarter that weighs closer to 6.25 grams should immediately raise suspicion and warrants further testing. In fact, it's one of the easiest and most accessible ways for hobbyists to identify potential silver-struck errors. All you need is a precision scale. Another diagnostic feature is the edge of the coin. Clad quarters typically have a visible copper stripe along the edge due to the layered composition. Silver quarters, on the other hand, will have a uniform silver color with no copper showing. If you find a 1965 quarter with a silver edge and it also weighs close to 6.25 grams, you might just be holding one of the rarest coins in modern American history, but the intrigue doesn't stop there. Beyond the silver planchet error, 1965 quarters are known for a variety of other minting mistakes. One of the most significant and rarest is the presence of a mint mark. Officially, number 1965 quarters should have a mint mark. During this transitional period, the mint decided to omit mint marks on all coins to prevent coin hoarding based on where the coin was struck. So if you come across a 1965 quarter with a mint mark, especially a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, you might be looking at a very significant error. In some rare cases, mint mark punches may have been used accidentally, or older dies from previous years with mint marks were improperly repurposed. These anomalies can fetch astonishing prices depending on the visibility and clarity of the mint mark. Even traces or remnants of a mint mark under magnification can pique the interest of seasoned collectors. Then we have doubled dies. A doubled die occurs when the die itself receives two impressions from the hub at slightly different angles, causing parts of the coin design, like the date, lettering, or Liberty's profile, to appear doubled. While double die errors are more famously associated with coins like the 1955 Lincoln cent or the 1969 US cent, there are reports of minor double die varieties among 1965 quarters. These are not as widely documented, but any doubling on a 1965 quarter should be carefully examined. If you find bold doubling, especially on the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word "Liberty," that could substantially increase the coin's value. Striking errors are another intriguing class of minting mishaps that could turn an ordinary 1965 quarter into something exceptional. Off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the planchet, can be quite valuable, particularly if the date is still visible. Off-center errors that are dramatic but still retain a full date command higher premiums. A 1965 quarter struck 50% off-center, with a full date, could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition. Then there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck outside the collar that normally shapes the edge. These coins tend to have a flat, pancake-like appearance with no reeded edge. Again, rarity and condition determine value, but the novelty of such errors makes them highly collectible. Another possibility is a wrong planchet error. A 1965 quarter could have been struck on a planchet meant for another denomination. For example, if it was struck on a dime planchet, it would be smaller and lighter than normal. These kinds of errors are exceptionally rare and generally occur when planchets for different denominations are accidentally mixed at the mint. A 1965 quarter struck on a dime planchet could be worth a small fortune, especially if it's authenticated by a major grading service. On the topic of authentication, it's crucial to emphasize how important it is to have any potential error coin verified by a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations have the expertise and equipment necessary to confirm a coin's composition, strike anomalies, and die characteristics. If you suspect you have a 1965 quarter with any of the errors we've discussed, especially one that might be silver, it's worth submitting for authentication and grading. Not only does this confirm its legitimacy, but it also helps determine its market value. Let's circle back to the idea of why one of these coins could be valued as high as $7 million. A large part of that valuation rests not just on the rarity or the physical composition of the coin but also on the story it tells. A coin like the 1965 silver quarter isn't just a financial artifact, it's a historical mistake, a ghost from a bygone minting process. It's the physical evidence of a massive national transition in coinage that affected millions of people and billions of coins. Owning one is like owning a piece of time that was never meant to exist. High-value coins often reflect more than just metal content or minting error. They embody mystery, excitement, and the thrill of discovery. The $7 million figure may sound hyperbolic, but it's not impossible. Private sales in the numismatic world can reach astronomical figures, especially when the item in question is unique, historically significant, and possesses that X factor that collectors crave. And let's not forget the role of condition. A mint state or proof-like error coin is always going to be worth more than one that's been through circulation. If a 1965 silver quarter were discovered today in pristine, untouched condition, especially with a sharp strike, full details, and zero wear, its value could soar to historic highs. Combine that with a rare error such as a visible mint mark or dramatic doubling, and you could be looking at a one-of-a-kind coin. That's where seven-figure valuations become plausible. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, specifically focusing on one extraordinary piece that has captured the attention of collectors and enthusiasts alike, the 1967 Liberty Quarter Dollar. At first glance, it might seem like an ordinary piece of American currency, one that could easily go unnoticed in your spare change jar or among the coins jingling in your pocket. But beneath its humble surface lies a story packed with numismatic intrigue, historical significance, minting anomalies, and, most importantly, an estimated face value of over $6.3 million due to its rare and unique errors. The 1967 quarter wasn't struck in some secretive minting facility or in an era of experimental designs. It came out during a time of transition in U.S. coinage, an era when the U.S. Mint was adapting to major changes, including the elimination of silver from dimes and quarters just a couple of years prior. So, what makes this seemingly mundane coin so incredibly valuable? Why would anyone pay millions for something that's technically worth just 25 cents? The answer lies in a combination of rarity, historical circumstances, human error, and sheer luck. The U.S. Mint had a tumultuous decade during the 1960s. After the Coinage Act of 1965, the Mint removed silver from quarters and dimes, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. This shift not only changed the composition of coins but also altered the entire minting process, making it prone to more mistakes during the adaptation phase. And in 1967, coins were minted without any mint marks as part of the Mint's efforts to discourage collectors from hoarding coins based on mint origin. This policy only lasted a couple of years, making the 1967 quarter unique in its own right due to the absence of mint marks, which traditionally indicated whether a coin was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Now, the average 1967 quarter is certainly not rare. In fact, the U.S. Mint produced over 1.5 billion quarters that year. So why is this one specific 1967 quarter valued at over $6.3 million? The story begins with a series of unprecedented mint errors and anomalies that turned a common coin into a numismatic masterpiece. These kinds of minting mistakes are incredibly rare, and when they happen in combination, as in the case of this particular coin, they amplify the coin's uniqueness and value exponentially. Let's begin with the most intriguing aspect, the minting errors. There are several different types of known mint errors in U.S. coinage: double dies, off-center strikes, planchet errors, wrong metal errors, die caps, broad strikes, and clipped planchets, just to name a few. The 1967 Liberty Quarter that commands such an astronomical price is believed to be the result of not just one or two of these errors, but potentially several, all appearing on a single coin. One of the primary features collectors point to in this million-dollar coin is the double die error. A double die occurs when the die used to strike the coin has been impressed twice by the hub at slightly different angles or positions, creating a visible doubling of images on the coin, especially in areas like the date, lettering, or portrait. In the 1967 Liberty Quarter, observers have noted a pronounced doubling in the word Liberty and In God We Trust, as well as subtle doubling in the date itself. These types of doubling errors are usually easy to spot with the naked eye or a low-powered magnifier, and the more dramatic the doubling, the more valuable the coin, but that's just the beginning. The million-dollar 1967 quarter also exhibits signs of being struck on a transitional planchet. During the late 1960s, the Mint was in the midst of significant material changes. There were still a few leftover silver planchets from earlier years, and occasionally, these older blanks were fed into the coining presses by mistake. It's believed that the rare 1967 quarter in question might have been struck on a 90% silver planchet, rather than the standard copper-nickel-clad composition. That alone would make the coin exceptional, as silver planchet errors from this era are incredibly scarce and highly sought after. Such an error means the coin was struck on a blank intended for an earlier date or a different denomination, possibly even a foreign coin. Spectrographic analysis done on similar rare coins has confirmed the presence of silver content where it shouldn't be, proving that these kinds of mix-ups did happen, albeit very rarely. This makes the 1967 silver quarter one of the most extraordinary transitional error coins ever discovered. Combine that with the double die error and you're looking at a numismatic jackpot. Another possible explanation for the coin's incredible value is its strike quality and alignment. In some cases, collectors have reported seeing 1967 quarters with off-center strikes that range from just a few percent to as much as 75%. The most valuable off-center coins are those that are still able to show the date, since that validates the year of minting. An off-center 1967 quarter with a visible date, combined with a double die or a silver planchet error, becomes exponentially more rare. Some examples of these million-dollar quarters also show signs of what numismatists refer to as a broad strike, a type of minting error that occurs when the coin is struck without a properly seated retaining collar. This allows the metal to spread out more than usual, creating a misshapen but intriguing appearance. Broad-struck coins, especially when combined with other anomalies, become valuable due to their uniqueness and the visual appeal they offer collectors. Then there's the issue of die breaks or die clashes. A die break occurs when a part of the die, the tool used to stamp the coin, cracks or breaks during use, leaving unusual raised lines or cuds on the surface of the coin. A die clash, on the other hand, happens when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, imprinting faint reverse designs onto the obverse side, or vice versa. These errors create unusual and distinctive features on the coin's surface, which can sometimes resemble ghost images or additional markings that weren't part of the original design. The 1967 quarter reportedly has one of the most dramatic die clash errors ever seen in a coin from that era, possibly even suggesting over-polished dies, which obscure certain design elements, making the coin even more unusual. So now you've got a coin that was minted during a year with no mint marks, struck on a silver planchet when it should have been copper nickel, featuring clear double die characteristics, an off-center or broad strike error, and potentially a dramatic die clash or break, all in one single coin. That's not just a rare coin, that's a perfect storm of minting anomalies. And that's precisely what makes it worth millions. Another reason this particular 1967 quarter is so valuable is its condition. In the world of numismatics, condition is king. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless coin. The $1 million quarter has been reportedly graded at a high level, possibly even mint state 67 or higher. At such a high grade, especially with multiple errors, the rarity factor soars. High-grade error coins are particularly rare because most coins with errors are caught during the quality control process or are damaged in circulation, making pristine specimens incredibly hard to come by. Now, consider the collector's psychology. When a coin like this surfaces, the demand is intense. It doesn't just appeal to U.S. collectors, it has international interest due to its extreme uniqueness and historical backstory. Major collectors, auction houses, and even museums might be willing to shell out extraordinary amounts of money just to claim ownership of such a rare piece. It's not just about the metal or the denomination, it's about the story, the intrigue, the mystery of how such a coin came to be, survived for decades, and then emerged in near-perfect condition. Furthermore, provenance plays a huge role. The story of how the coin was discovered adds to its lore. Imagine a collector or a casual enthusiast finding it in a roll of quarters or receiving it as change from a vending machine, unaware at first that they're holding a small fortune in their hand. Such narratives capture imaginations and enhance value. Auction houses love these backstories, they turn a rare coin into a legend. And legends drive up prices. There's also speculation among experts that there may be more of these 1967 era quarters out there, undiscovered, sitting in change jars or old collections, passed down from generation to generation. That possibility keeps collectors searching, and it keeps the legend alive. Every quarter someone examines closely could be the next $1 million discovery. In conclusion, the 1967 Liberty quarter dollar has become one of the most talked about coins in recent history because it combines a perfect confluence of rarity, minting errors, historical significance, and immaculate preservation. It's not just a quarter, it's a symbol of how chance, human error, and historical context can align to create a numismatic masterpiece. It's a reminder that treasures can be hiding in plain sight, and that something as simple and unassuming as a coin can carry within it the weight of history and the promise of unimaginable value.